Hi everyone, Ashley here for the Penguin Palace Stamps YouTube channel. And for today's video, I'm going to show how to make this super fun card with a whole bunch of critters that are dancing and clubbing and enjoying their time with this really fun splattered ink background. It's actually sort of galaxy-esque, and it's my first attempt at this type of background, and I think it turned out really good. So I'm super excited to share it with you guys today. So without further ado, let's get into it. I've already pre-cut out my background panel here, which is just a piece of nice blendable cardstock. I think I used Strathmore Bristol Smooth, but you could use any kind of cardstock that takes ink nicely and blends well. I'm using some purple tape here, which I kind of went ahead first and just stuck it onto my hand a few times to take out some extra tack. And I'm just taping it along all edges of the card panel to create a white border around the edges, as well as to keep the card panel adhered to my work surface as I ink blend onto it. So how I'm doing this background is just taking 3 really bright colors. So for me, I used Distress Oxides in Squeezed Lemonade for the yellow, Wilted Violet for the purple, and Cracked Pistachio for the greeny blue. But you could really choose to use any colors of any ink that you have that is a nice blending ink. So as you can see, I just kind of roughly dabbed the ink onto the paper in circles using my foam blending tools. So this is super easy, you do not have to be technical with this. I literally just kind of blended on a bunch of circles in a completely random pattern. It didn't really take any effort to blend them together or anything. I just put them kind of beside each other and tried to cover the whole panel. Then I'm taking my black Distress Oxide ink, which is black soot, and really just going over the whole thing. And I started by trying to have a bit of a lighter hand. So I'm trying to leave some of that color to come through. But as you sort of ink blend more and build it up more, it does get a bit darker. But that's okay, it kind of all comes into the end effect where it really is sort of just like a big dark panel, but you have sort of these peeps of color showing through almost like you would with a dark night sky with some far off stars kind of shining through. So I'm continuing to build the blending and just applying more and more ink until I get the result that I'm looking for. So with the black, I'm just kind of blending back and forth, and then I kind of go back to each color and add a little bit more. And I noticed that when I did this, I kind of got a lot of black ink onto my blending foam. So be wary of that. If you do this technique, you might want to have some spare ink blending foams on hand so that you can get them all mucky and it won't matter. So just kind of watch it for that. Even without doing that, honestly, it looked good before. I think I just kind of wanted to get a bit more of the color popping out, but that's really an optional step. You could just apply the black and kind of be done. I wanted to have a splatter effect that almost looked like stars. So I just put some water into a watercolor pan, and this is just a plain white pearlescent watercolor. It comes in a Gansai Tombi set. And I just dabbed it onto an acrylic block and used a paintbrush to splatter it out onto the paper. And this creates that really cool random splatter effect. And I did this a couple times to really just build up the splatter. And then I started adding some different colors. So I used the pink watercolor, I used the blue watercolor, and I think I also used the yellow to kind of just add this really cool mix of colors and make it look like a fun, colorful galaxy sky. So for each one, I did the same thing where I just applied the watercolor onto the acrylic block and then used a paintbrush to splatter it out. All of the critters on this card come from this adorable stamp set by Penguin Palace Stamps called Fun Night Out. And this stamp set comes with a bunch of different critters that are just having a really good time. And it also comes with a bunch of scene building elements which help in building cards like this because you can really make it look like a proper scene. So you've got the dance floor, and then you've got a couple dancing critters, but you also have a little table and a bunch of little drinks. So it looks like all of the critters are drinking or having fun. And then you also have the DJ cat. So I'm actually going to end up putting that one off to the side so it looks like he's just kind of in charge of the whole scene, and he's DJing and everyone else is listening and dancing and having a good time. Oh, and you also get the disco ball, which is super fun. And you also get that cute little bowl of popcorn, which of course, you can't have drinks without having a little snack, at least not if you're me, especially if it's popcorn. So I'm coloring in all of these critters with my Copic markers. I started by coloring the dance floor in a rainbow effect, so starting with red and then going through orange, yellow, green, blue, purple, and pink. And I used both a dark and light shade for each one to kind of give an effective dimension. For the rest of my coloring, I'm just going to go ahead and have the music play while the coloring continues, so sit back and relax and enjoy watching the coloring come together. Or if you don't want to watch the rest of the coloring, definitely feel free to jump ahead in the video and see how the rest of the card comes together. Okay, so off camera I went ahead and die cut all those elements, and I'll be adding them to the card in a little bit. But first I want to finish with making the scene. So I knew I wanted to have a dance floor. So I took a piece of wood grain cardstock, and this is just sort of a whitish color cardstock that has a wood grain pattern embossed into it. And I'm just ink blending some Distress Oxide ink in Vintage Photo onto it, and this is just a really nice brown color, which I thought would look like a wood floor. So I'm using a pretty light hand because I kind of wanted it to have a bit of dimension to it, so it'd be darker at the bottom and lighter at the top. So I tried to sort of blend it in a way that the ink was sort of saturated at the bottom and blended out towards the top to fade away. I'm using some liquid glue to adhere that down onto the card panel. And by the way, I didn't show it on camera, but you can see that when I took that purple tape around the edges off, you get that really nice border on the panel. And I'm gluing that all down onto a card base, which I've just cut out of white cardstock, a nice thick white cardstock, which is good for a card base. Mine is 110 pounds. And it's cut to 4 inches by 9 inches. So basically what I do is I cut a piece of paper down to 9 inches by 8 inches, and then I score it at 4 inches, so that's how I get that slimline length. As you can see in the top left corner there, I've sort of arranged all of the elements onto my card, but I haven't glued them down yet. First, I want to build out the sentiment. So I'm taking one of my favorite letter stamp sets, and I think this one is by Ink Pot Shop, and I'm stamping out the word shake with individual letters in a nice pink ink. And then I'm stamping out It Off from the Fun Night Out stamp set. I then cut out each letter to be individual and was able to glue them down onto the card panel using liquid glue to kind of look like the words themselves are shaking. So I sort of offset each letter and made it look like it's shaking around, which is fun. I then decided that I wanted the dancing critters to be on action wobblers. So I took an action wobbler and glued it onto the back of each of the critters, and then glued the action wobbler down onto the card front. And you'll see the cool effect that you get when you do this. And it's that when you kind of tap on the little critter, it shakes around like it's dancing. It's so fun. So there it goes, it's shaking, and it really vibrates in such a fun way. And the cool thing is that when you take the card out of the envelope, they sort of pop up and shake already, so the recipient will know exactly what they're meant to do, which is really fun. I then used liquid glue to glue down all the rest of the elements onto the card front, and I had actually off camera gone ahead and just cut a little banner edge around that It Off sentiment so that it kind of fit in with the word shake. So the whole thing says Shake It Off. For the rest of the critters, I used a combination of liquid glue and foam squares. Some of them I wanted to give a bit of dimension to make the card a little bit more interesting, and some of them I ended up just gluing straight down flat onto the card to kind of add towards the background. To finish off the card, I added some sparkle with some tiny little silver stars, and I believe that these ones are from Distress. And I just thought that was a fun addition to the background because it kind of looked like a galaxy sky, so these little stars are sort of part of that sky. I then added some sparkle with a Wink of Stella marker, and this just adds a really nice sparkly, shimmery, shiny effect to whatever you painted onto, and I'll show that by kind of rotating the card in the light in just a moment. And I added some glossy accents, which adds a really beautiful, clear, shiny 3D layer to whatever you put on, which again I'll show when I rotate the card in the video in just a moment. So I put that glossy accent onto the disco ball to make it super shiny, as well as onto the front of the cat's glasses. So there you have it, that is the card for today. You can see all that shimmer and shine when I rotate the card. The stars that I glued on at the end really stand out, which I think is beautiful, as well as all of that ink splatter. And then when you touch those cute little dancing critters, they shake like they're dancing. They're shaking it off, which I just think is so adorable. So I hope that you enjoyed today's video. If you want to see more cards like this, definitely go check out the Penguin Palace Stamps Instagram account as well as my personal Instagram account. Both are linked down in the description below. Thanks so much for watching. See you next time. Bye!